Hey guys, and welcome one and all to the Time Bomb channel, of course, with myself, the Bombardier. And today on the channel, got a couple of watches that have been lent into the channel, and yep, again, we're going vintage. The first one up we have is this Longines, and secondly, we have a Mercedes. I'm not sure that, I think, the start of the show is going to be the Longines today. I'm not really sure that I want to go into the Longines brand themselves. That's been clearly covered by multiple reviewers at time and time and again, over and over again. And I'm also not sure that this particular watch really represents Longines as a brand in, say, perhaps the same way as the Explorer represents Rolex. Additionally, this Mercedes is by no means an AMG, so I think what I'm going to do is just readjust the camera and crack on talking about the specific watches themselves. So the vintage aspect, I think, let's start off with the Longines. So this particular Longines comes from all the way back in 1943, and it's actually a little bit puzzling as it came from the auctioneers with no detail at all as to what it is. However, Longines themselves really did come up trumps and responded super quickly to our email query with some additional detail to help unpick that puzzle. What they were able to tell us was that this watch was actually purchased, as I say, purchased here in auction here in the UK. But what they told us in their replies that indicated that it was actually sold on June 25th, 1943, through their supplier Perricet. Throw up an image of who they are here, Perricet and Didisheim, who were the Longines authorised agent in Argentina. The fact that 2020 Longines are able to share that level of detail really does impress me, and really does appeal to the geek that sits there deep down inside me. In spite of the info shared by Longines, I actually did then continue my search for Longines from Perricet. And as I was doing that, through Google search, obviously, it was evident to me that I was certainly not the first person to have investigated that, gone into that level of research and detail, as there are many examples of requests to Longines and their replies referencing Perricet. Just pop up an example for you here so you can see what I'm talking about. Perricet and Didisheim seem to have closed down doors some time back, but I did find this rather interesting receipt of theirs from the early 1900s, showing that they were again, really doing very, very well selling Longines in Buenos Aires. Clearly, they were global, again, as it can be seen here, with stores in Europe, with this little bit of spot of marketing that you can find there. But coming back to our reply from Longines on this particular watch, they shared that this is the 6-255-157 is actually the reference 5049, which to them is a manually wound mechanical 27M movement. Pop up an image of the internal movement for you here. It's quite a venerable old movement. Looking up close with this particular watch, though, one of the things that first stood out when I was doing my research in comparison to some of the other watches was actually the lugs. Because as you can see here, these lugs really do sort of loop and drop down, which is in quite stark contrast to a lot of the other watches around that time, where those lugs were much straighter. As I say, these ones really do drop down quite substantially, and they're actually sort of a little bit sharp on the end again, which is quite peculiar, I think. The rest of the watch, though, itself is super conservative. There's no There's no signatures on the case back, the crown, nothing like that. It's pretty sterile in that sense. Let me just see if I can get better focus on that dial. Something that I wanted to try and pick up for you there. So what we actually have is like a ghost or a semi-ghost sub-dial. It is actually recessed just a fraction, but as you can see again, there's no individual second markings on that sub-dial. Current Longines flagship heritage models carry both options, those with the sub-dial and then again those without. I'll pop up an image there for you to see what I'm talking about. So yeah, I mean, my original take on this was that it might be a redial, but perhaps looking at what Longines have done with the sub-dials there, maybe I'm a little wrong. The font on here for Longines just above the hour hands, again, is quite accurate to a lot of other vintage Longines I've seen. However, this one, as you can see at the top, just under the 12, the absent 12, states limited edition. And then a little bit closer, you can see that those that the hands themselves, these sword style hands, actually appear to me, in my eyes, to have been painted over. And that, with sort of like this split red-black aspect to it, both the owner and myself, spent hours and hours and hours searching for equivalent dial designs. That leads me to believe that this might be a redial, perhaps done, a customer requirement, something like that, which is pretty damned impressive that they went ahead and did it. Maybe back then in the 40s, Longines, acquiesced to requests like that, which perhaps, on a daily basis nowadays, they're not going to do. However, if you guys, have any different ideas about the dial that we're looking at here, and whether this is a redial or whether it was, sort of a rogue special edition, it'd be really interesting to hear your thoughts. So please do pop them down below. Coming back to the watch itself, I have to say that I think the previous owner made a rather suspect call with the addition of this red croc strap. I really, really dislike it. And I guess they've chosen that colour in order to try and bring out the dial colour itself. But I kind of think that they might have dropped the ball a little bit there. My first instinct would be perhaps to put this watch itself on a bund strap to reflect the flight aspect, the history, etc., or maybe even the B Uran style here with the silver rivets rather than the brass. But then again, I mean, the watch itself is super petite, so then I'm kind of thinking that the Uran may overpower it. Let me just pop it on wrist so you can sort of see what I mean by the petiteness of it. Got the Pingo here. Yeah, absolutely dwarfs the poor little Longines. But yeah, even on wrist, as you can see, it almost looks a little bit toyish, slightly feminine. My wrist is 7¼ inch. As I say, I think that strap really does need to change in order to help bring this watch back to life and bring out its character. Anyway, what do you guys think? What kind of strap do you think would bring this vintage conundrum to life? Pop your thoughts down below. I'd be interested to hear what you think. So coming back to that Flieger aspect, the dial design, which is clearly been created, to be military or aviation feel to it, led me to search for the Argentinian Airforce. So yeah, watch bought in Argentina, maybe this is whether they had a connection with the Air Force, and I found that they did in fact commission watches for their pilots in the 1970s. But unfortunately, as can be seen here, this is actually a tag. Unfortunately, again, the Argentinian Air Force didn't actually exist as a united force until 1945. So a couple of years after this one was sold, but that still does let me to believe that that's possibly where the history is going to be able to reveal the true identity of this watch. I did find also a later watch carrying the Argentinian Airforce logo, and yeah, it's also a Longines. This one particularly is the caliber 232, stated that it was made for officers only, but unfortunately, again, coming a few years later than the example that we have here. So, very, very interesting little Longines, this one. And yeah, again, thanks again for tuning in to sort of have a look at my thoughts on this particular watch. I'm going to crack on now with the Mercedes. But yeah, to conclude from this one, I think a super piece of history, and like many other things from the past, requiring a little bit of digging around to try and decipher what it is that we've actually got. And again, that original owner, that had this styled in that particular way, is kind of curious. So yeah, bought at that same auction here in the UK. We have this rather curious Mercedes dive style watch, and I say dive style as the water resistance is only up to 50 meters. And whilst 50 meters is healthy depth underwater, I certainly wouldn't have trusted the watertightness of this. Moreover, as this watch has been quite heavily used, so yeah, it's kind of inviting a little bit of leakage, really, isn't it? So digging around again on this particular one, I just found one example of this watch actually on sale at the moment on eBay, and the guy's explaining that the first watch, this particular watch, was released back in 2000. As you can see from the image here of a new, a clean version. It had this sort of carbon fibre embossed leather strap attached to it, and fairly handsome when it was new. This particular watch itself has got rather, if you consider the beefiness of this 44 mil case, they've put on these like fiddly little 20 mil drilled lug and strap. I think it's just adding to wobble, and it just looks disproportionate. Anyway, my thought. It is an automatic, as is stated on the dial. Again, though, I wasn't able to find any detail about what kind of automatic it is. Their current automatics use Etas, Rondas, Solitas, etc. We've got an exhibition case back here, which again, it reveals a particularly grey, muted steel innards, and I'm sort of in two minds as to whether this is design genius in revealing those steely industrial intestines, or whether it's just a cheap-ass ugly movement that they probably shouldn't have bothered with that exhibition case back. Unfortunately, as you can see, the watch is also not working, so we're not really able to see much happening in there. The crown is signed. It's a popper as opposed to a screwed round, but as you would expect from that 50 meters. The signing that you've got on there is actually the same as the one that we have on here. So just here we can see that it says designed by, and then we've got this little symbol which is envelope or email, something like an N and then a reverse C or even a D. Again, I spent quite a long time digging around trying to identify this logo. Anyone's got any ideas as to which designer this refers to? That would be kind of useful to know. Coming back to sort of like the overall aspect of the watch, I mean, the case itself is very, very much my cup of tea. It's a chunky piece of steel with some, very well-defined angles on here and on wrist. I think... yeah, it works very, very well. As I say, for me, the strap is really the wrong size. It should be minimum 22, or even better, a 24. Then I think it would look even better. The hands here, you can see evidence of the fact that they were loomed. However, I've tried to take some dark shots. There's nothing left of the loom anymore, so I can't provide you with a photo of that. Sorry. The yellowed second hand here really does pop out quite nicely, and this is a feature that of different colour second hands. It's one that I personally really, really like. I have to question sort of like that triple date view over here. I mean, is this a perpetual calendar? The fact that again that automatic movement has no reference, etc. I'm kind of doubting that this is a perpetual calendar, and I think it's more there as a gimmick. The bezel itself does move, but maybe because of the age, it's particularly stiff, and also the way that it sort of scallops over the top there makes it particularly difficult to shift around, which should lead me to conclude it's totally unusable when wearing gloves, or alternatively if the watch itself was wet. I'm not sure if this, yeah, there we go, better view from the camera. The dial itself does feature all these concentric circles, sort of, dug into that, deep black dial, and I'm kind of thinking that when new, that probably did look really, really quite nice. And overall, you can see from the beating that this one's received, it certainly has been someone's favourite watch, and they've not spared it any usage, leading me to believe that they've had a lot of fun with this watch when they've owned it, and perhaps that's the deciding factor. To conclude, here are some shots of the Mercedes current watch range. And I'm sorry, but I have to say they don't really do it for me. The Lambo watch that I reviewed the other day was far, far superior to this one. And moreover, the prices on the Mercedes range are above the £800 mark. So they are clearly pitched at the Mercedes fanboys and fangirls looking to own a watch that's got the same brand as their car. And that, to me, kind of is not really enough. It's been a long while since I asked this question in a review, but tell me, guys, what do you think? Are we going to cut the red wire or the black wire on this Mercedes watch? Let me know down below. Thank you. And I think that's probably a wrap for today. Thank you, guys, as always, for your time and for your view. And until next time with some more content, this is your host, the Bombardier, signing off. Cheers.